So to start with that, why don't they go back further is because these are the first plantations after phylloxera, which wiped out just about all of the European and worldwide vineyard between 1850 and 1890, 1880 depending. And so these plantations, which in our case start around 1900, 1905, the replacements for the vineyards that had to be ripped up. And so the role of them is quite a far cry from, for example, what we're doing now. It's to make certain large quantities of wine for people all over the place, certainly in non-vine growing regions, so for example in the north of France, for rations, for the army, for the police force, for factories. Given that the average consumption of wine was considerably higher then than it is now. However, that needs to be tempered with what was the wine, what did it resemble. You know, you're talking 5-6% as a drink that was often safer to drink than the water in a lot of areas, you know, 110, 115 years ago, where mains water didn't exist. So that was the basis of having these huge, great areas of vineyard. You know, it's important to explain that not just the Languedoc, but particularly in the Languedoc, was more or less a monoculture. And so it's a great swathe of vineyard going basically from Spain to Italy. So from the Roussillon through to Languedoc and through Provence as well. It's enormous quantities of wine from a monocultural region. So that was their job until the 50s, 60s. Obviously there's a declining consumption of wine nationally, as there still is, and also as the volume declined, the style and what people wanted from wine has changed as well. I guess you could say we're in the middle of an evolutionary period in 2014. A transition from it being, from wine being a daily drink to a luxury product in a way, to a product that is not necessarily every day, to a product that is outside a basic shopping basket. And so basically for us that means a reinterpretation in our case of these old vines and what they are used for. Instead of replanting, which is another option, it's a case of looking at what the potential is with these vineyards, what they can give. So you're coming away from their original purpose and looking at them in another way. There are certainly economic parameters as well that come into the equation, as much as these were planted for being worked by horses. And so if you're, for example, most people in the Languedoc, most wine growers even now take their grapes to cooperatives. They're paid by the kilo or they're paid by the ton, and so they're trying to get the maximum yield off the land for the least amount of costs. So if your vineyard is planted for horses, it's going to be less mechanizable or not mechanizable at all, so your costs are going to be way higher. So in a lot of cases, these vines have been the first to have been ripped up and then replanted, so you can treat them with tractors, so you can plough with tractors, so you can harvest with machine harvesters, and thereby keeping your costs way down. There's a huge difference in cost. That's not where we are, on the one hand, because we're using the resource that you can get from these old vines in terms of flavours, in terms of wine style, and on the other end, by the fact that we bottle everything that we make, we have the opportunity to be much more profitable and to pay for the fact that we have greater costs in getting to that point. So I guess that explains why some of these old vines are there, but most of them are not. It's because us and people like us, on the one hand, are getting this breeding, I guess you'd say, this new life out of the vines, but a lot of them have been replanted or ripped up and just left as fields now. hate. Its arms are long.